He started up the unit many times, it worked fine, and the Quincy tech said I never a 50 amp breaker. The service disconnect has 48 fuses and it's blowing the fuses on startup every so often. This is a brand new air compressor, and I had Quincy come out to tell me I need 58 fuses. However, every online store says 48 in their spec sheet. Can I send you a picture of the plate that is on the motor and on the compressor?
Hello and welcome to Just Answer. My name is I will be happy to assist you with your electrical question. 1. You can either send a picture of the compressor nameplate rating or provide me with the FLA rating and the horsepower of the motor. I assume the supply voltage is 240 volts, is that correct? 2. The inrush current upon motor startup is the cause of the breaker tripping.
I am sending you 3 pictures. Let me know if you got all 3. Based on the pictures, what amp/breaker size should this unit be at?
Received all 3 pics. Thanks. 1. What is the supply voltage? 208 volts or 230 volts?
Good question. How do I give you the correct answer? I am not by all means an electrician. This compressor is in my home garage. My main breaker panel is 200 amp and the panel in the garage is a 60 amp.
1. Since at your home, the supply voltage is 240 volts single phase. 2. Per the National Electrical Code, all electric motors will have an immediate inrush current where the full load current rapidly increases upon motor startup and then will spike and level back down to the FLA rating. A 230 volt/7.5 horsepower motor has an FLA rating of 40 amps. 3. Code then requires a minimum of a 125% factor to compensate for the inrush current or a maximum of a 250% of the motor FLA rating. Therefore, minimal overcurrent device needs to be 40 amps x 1.25 equals 50 amps. Maximum overcurrent device will result in 40 amps x 2.5 equals 100 amps. 4. I agree with the Quincy rep that the minimal fuse and or breaker size should be 50 amps. You should not have to increase the fuse or breaker any higher than 50 amps.
What about if I use time delay fuses in the service disconnect?
1. Per the NEC, time delay fuses are sized at 175% of the motor FLA rating.
Not sure what that means. I assume it's okay or not okay.
1. If using time delay fuses, they need to be sized at 40 amps x 1.75 equals 70 amps. Time delay fuses are code compliant. Although, I doubt that the inrush current will reach that level. The reason for the 125% to 250% levels is that some motors may have a higher inrush than other motors. Thus the overcurrent protection can be increased if necessary. Does that help answer your question?
What amperage time delay fuse should I buy? 40 amps, 70 amps. Sorry for being difficult. This is like another language to me.
No problem, glad to assist. 1. Since the fuses are blowing once in a while, the inrush current is most likely just a little bit above 40 amps. I recommend to install 70 amp fuses, and that will provide you with the correct fuse sizing per the NEC. The 70 amp fuses should not blow upon motor startup.
My mind is going nuts with this issue, so please don't feel insulted with this. I was told to put in a 48 time delay fuse or bump up the wires and breaker size. To make it cost effective and right, I'd rather replace the fuses versus running new wires and buying a breaker. My thought is a 48 time delay fuse should be okay versus a 70A since the breaker in the subpanel is a 40A. There is this video on YouTube called, The Disconnect and Time Delay Fuses AC101 that you can watch, and even he said the same thing. Is there something that I am overlooking? Sorry again.
1. Code requires that the conductor size be sized at 125% of the FLA rating. Therefore, 40 amps x 1.25 equals 50 amps. Thus the circuit conductor should have been sized as 6 AWG copper and not 8 AWG copper. 8 AWG copper is rated for 40 amps. 6 AWG copper is rated up to 60 amps. 2. If using a breaker, it can be sized up to a maximum of 250% of the FLA rating. At a minimum, the breaker needs to be sized at 125% of the motor Florida. Breaker needs to be 50 amps. If using a time delay fuse, it needs to be sized as 175% of FLA rating. 3. The time delay fuse is acting different than the circuit breaker. Since the subpanel is located in the garage, you don't require a fuse disco switch. A regular double-pole, non-fuse disco switch can be used as the means of disconnect. Then the panel branch breaker would be the only overcurrent device on the circuit. 4. You can certainly try 40 amp time delay fuses. If it works, great. If still blowing, then the fuses need to be increased to compensate for a higher inrush current.
Okay, I'm going to try 40A fuse and see what happens. With my luck I will be putting in a 70A fuse or running new wires and breaker. The current fuses I had were Cooper Busman non-40. Which 4070 fuse should I buy from Cooper Busman? I looked on their website, but to me it's another language. Can you send me a link from the Cooper site?
Do the fuses have a metal plate on each end and the fuse is in the middle or just round at the fuse ends?
Let me send you a picture of what I currently have since I am not sure. Bear with me.
No problem, take your time.
Pic attached.
Thanks for the pic. 1. Here is a 40 amp time delay fuse sold at Home Depot. http://www.homadepot.com/p/Cooper Busman FRN Series 40 amp brass time delay cartridge fuses 2-pack BP FRN are 4100,144,155. 2. I am unable to locate a 70 amp time delay fuse in that style. Not that common of a size and style. I recommend that you contact a local electrical supply store. 1. Cooper Busman sells the round end cap time delay 70 amp cartridge fuse. Here is the link. Refer to the top section. Fuses come in either knife blade end or round end cap styles. Just unable to locate any on Home Depot or Lowe's. http://www.cooperindustriescom/content/public/n/busman/consumer/product/circuit_protection products/fuses/cartridge_fuses.html. 1. Once you get higher than a 60 amp, most cartridge fuses are the knife blade type on the ends and not the rounded end cap version like you have. However, according to Cooper Busman, they are available in a 70 amp time delay cartridge, round end cap style. If you have any additional questions, just let me know and I'll be glad to answer them for you. Otherwise, don't forget to rate me before you log off. Thanks. Kevin.
What the difference between the black and the green fuses? I watched a video by Graybar from YouTube called Fuses Made Simple with Busman by Eton. Supposedly I need the green ones and not the black ones. I assume the green ones have better protection. I always thought a fuse is a fuse.
Yes, there are many types of fuses and class ratings. I believe the difference in colors for cartridge fuses is the class or series rating from the manufacturer. The fuse disconnect panel should have a label showing the required fuse type, class type and series. Kinda similar to circuit breakers as these come in a few different versions.
I'll go take a peek and let you know.
Okay, very good.
This is the label for the service disconnect.
Looks like your disco switch can be used with either class H, K or R.
I know that class H and class R are the most common types. I know the class type has something to do with the maximum rated fuse amperage, but not sure how the fuse manufacturers came up with the color code.
This is a 40A heavy-duty time delay part number FRN or 40. I will be sending you a different 40A time delay fuses. Let me know which I should get. This one is FRN or 40. Which should I get since they are both time delay?
I recommend the last version since it provides an indicator if the fuse is blown. Make sure you take a measurement and compare the length of the original fuse to the replacement fuses. They come in different lengths.
I sent an email to Quincy. Below is my email and response. Are they on drugs and want me to use a 80 amp breaker? Delvin, I had my electrician wire up the compressor and it worked fine for a while until the compressor started to trip on every second or third startup. He looked at the different stickers again on the unit to see if the correct breaker was used, and based on calculations/code the unit needs a 40 amp breaker with the proper wire size. I called Quincy in Addison, Illinois, and they looked at the factory settings and the tech said the amperage setting was not correct because the service factor was not calculated. The tech adjusted something inside the service panel that is on the unit. He started up the unit many times, it worked fine, and the Quincy tech said I never a 50 amp breaker. Now upon startup there is a loud clicking sound every so often. I talked to my electrician again and he said without any additional information from Quincy as to why the compressor needs a bigger breaker he will not upgrade incoming power to the unit. Ever since the tech made this adjustment I hear this loud clicking/popping sound sparingly at startup. The website I bought it from even specifies to use a 40 amp breaker, so I am not sure what is the issue here. Please see attached 4 pictures. First picture is the model and serial number, second picture is the sticker on the motor, third picture is the Quincy data sticker, and the fourth picture is the code book where, based on calculations, 28 amps x 1.25, a 40 amp breaker was used. This is their response. I have attached the specs that we have on our website quincy-difference.com, and I show an 80 amp breaker with number 8 wire up to an 100 TF. Run. The motor is tagged at 31.3 amps at 230 volts with an 1.15 service factor. This means that the motor will run full load at 35.995 amps without destroying itself. A 40 amp breaker is too small to be able to handle the inrush amps and the multiple starting on which it may be operated. I have no control on the local codes and what your electrician will or will not do. All I can tell you are what we show on our website and what has been working all over the United States and Canada. I hope this will help your electrician understand what needs to be done so your air compressor will operate correctly. Attached is the QT 7.5 spec sheet.
Very possible that the motor will require an 80 amp breaker due to the inrush current upon motor startup. Electric motors can react differently as to the amount of inrush current. The NEC allows a range from 125% to 250% when sizing the overcurrent protection device. Unfortunately, there is no specific factor to use. Whether to use a 1.25 factor or a 2.5 factor or a factor in between to size the breaker, overcurrent protection. Since their specs call for an 80 amp breaker, I recommend to follow their advice. An 80 amp breaker is obviously using a 2.0 factor and is still within acceptable range of the NEC max factor of 2.5. The website where you purchase the unit from does not matter as to the breaker size to install. The manufacturer specs need to be adhered to.
Attached are 2 pictures of the stickers on my compressor. Based on those stickers, I assume a 50 amp breaker is more than fine, but I could be wrong. From what little I know and what I have calculated and learned, a 50 amp breaker will be fine. If I need an 80/100 amp breaker, this unit is going back to the seller since their listing states 40 amp. I also don't have intentions to tear down my garage wall to upgrade my sub-panel that is currently at 60.
1. Since the motor FLA rating on a 230 volt/7.5 horsepower motor is at 40 amps, per the NEC, the overcurrent protection device will range anywhere from 125% to 250% of the FLA rating. 2. Therefore, at the low end, the breaker would be sized to 40 amps x 1.25 equals 50 amps. On the high end, 40 amps x 2.5 equals 100 amps. Therefore, the breaker can range anywhere from 50 to 100 amps in order to account for the inrush current. Obviously, 80 amps falls into this range and is code compliant. 3. I understand your dilemma, however I can only provide you with what the NEC codes requires and what the manufacturer specs call for. Also keep in mind that a 7.5 horsepower motor is a fairly large motor size. Not sure how much air pressure you require, but possibly a smaller motor might need to be in order due to the sub-panel feeder circuit rating?
Stupid question, but my mind is going crazy. I assume it would be dumb for me to put an 80 amp breaker in a 60 amp sub-panel.
That is correct. If the inrush motor current requires 80 amps or close to it, the 60 amp feeder breaker for the sub-panel will overload and trip.
Okay, based on calculations and the pictures given, what size breaker can I use if I used a time delay fuse?
As I have previously mentioned, the overcurrent device will be anywhere from 50 to 100 amps. There is no set standard as to the amp rating. It is up to the manufacturer based on how they built the motor and the quality of parts they used. I have seen motors like yours that only require the bare minimals such as 50 amps, and I have seen other motors that require the maximum of the 250% rating. Unfortunately, I am not able to provide you with a direct answer on that.
My electrician came by this morning and bumped up the breaker from 40 to 50. He also bumped up the wires from the disconnect to the compressor from 10 grams to 6 grams. The only thing he did not replace was the 40 amp time delay fuse to 50. He said if anything happens to the compressor, the manufacturer is going to come out, look at these 2 stickers and say you have too much power going to the unit. So I asked him if I can put in a regular 50 amp fuse versus 50 amp time delay fuse, and he said no. From my understanding from reading online, a 40 amp time delay fuse works like a regular 50 or 80 fuse, can't remember if it was 50 or 80, because it's a time delay. I also talked to 2 other people who have this same exact compressors and motor, and they are running 50 breaker with 6 wire. Neither have a service disconnect.
Thanks for the replies. 1. Time delay fuses do not function the same as a regular fuse. A time delay fuse serves one function and its main purpose is to provide a time delay for the inrush current. A regular fuse only provides for overcurrent protection, but can easily blow upon an immediate inrush of higher current. Thus the two fuses serve two different purposes. 2. If a compressor is cord and plug connected, then there is no requirement for a fuse disconnect. The removal of the cord plug acts as the means of disconnect. If the compressor is hardwired and the breaker is within line of sight, then no need for a separate disco switch since the breaker will act as the means of disconnect. If the compressor is hardwired and the breaker is not within line of sight, then a disconnect is required. 2. Since increasing the breaker and circuit conductors, does it function properly or is the new breaker still tripping or is the time delay fuse blowing?
The time delay fuse never blew, just the regular fuse. It was tested 3-4x today while the electrician was here and it never tripped. The compressor comes with a control panel mounted on the unit. In the control panel is this black piece that goes in and out when the compressor turns on and off. Sparingly at startup, before today's electrical upgrade, there was a loud slamming/popping sound. After the upgrade today, breaker/wire, I think I heard it twice slightly slam/pop. But I think that sound was caused by constantly turning it on and off. My kids are going to bed soon, so I will play around with the air tools and see how it's truly running.
Yes, let me know how it is running. Not sure what the cause of the sound is? Possibly a solenoid turning on/off.
It wasn't doing that before. It would simply just trip and blew a regular fuse. So I replaced it with another one and it did it again. So I called up Quincy service. They came out and he said to bump up to 50 and he adjusted the service factor. His work comments were, customer unit was blowing fuses. I found that the amperage setting was not corrected because the service factor was not calculated in. I raised the amperage up to 38A, it was at 32A. I test run the unit and it did not trip. The highest amperage got to was 35.8A. The customer has a fuse of 40A. I believe the amps should be 50A because 10A above the set point will be 50A. Unit is running and I reminded customer to change the oil after 100 hours. I am going in the garage now. After Quincy service left, I gave a heads up to my electrician and he said to install 48 time delay fuses. I am not sure if the adjustment of the time delay fuses are causing that.
I would suspect the adjustments made were the cause of the sound.
I had the compressor start up on its own 5-6x and no issues with it tripping. Is it possible the adjustment the tech made caused premature damage? Last question. How many amps can a 48 time delay fuse hold? Obviously a regular 48 fuse will blow any amperage over 40, but what about a 48 time delay? Attached picture is the one I have.
Thanks for the replies. 1. Sounds like the problem has been fixed since no more tripping. I doubt any damage was caused by the adjustments. 2. Current limiting 10 seconds, minimum, at 500% rated amps, 5 times the fuse rating. Thus after 10 seconds, the fuse will blow once the 40 amp threshold has been reached. Thank you for the positive service rating. Much appreciated. If you have any other questions, just let me know. Take care and have a great day. Thanks again. Kevin.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit justanswer.com/ythi.